Hey everyone. So much like I did with the Kafka's domestic abuse guidance, I'm going to do a review of the Family Justice Council guidance on responding to allegations of alienating behaviour. Now, in the title, they've put a child's unexplained reluctance, resistance, or refusal to spend time with a parent as well. So they've included that, which I think is worth noting. So we'll skip past that. His words are pretty. He's always been quite. Andrew McFarlane's been quite good on the issue, and he recognises that it does exist. So anyway, let's see. So some background. They did a consultation paper, which was basically like the draft version of this earlier this year, March, April time, I think. And I sent a response over with my concerns at that time. Some of them, I mean, not just mine, obviously, there were hundreds of people, as he said in McFarlane's opening or introduction, that hundreds of people responded. Mine was just one of them. And some of them have been, there's been some clarity on some of them, and some other bits, but yeah, we'll see. I still have my concerns, but I'm going to try and view this as objectively as possible. I read it yesterday and I felt very disheartened by it and frustrated, as I'm sure lots of you did. But today's a new day, and yeah, so let's have a look at what it says. So the glossary of terms. So I have an issue straight off the bat with this AAA, this attachment, affinity, and alignment. Reasons why children may favour one parent over another or reject a parent, which are typical emotional responses to a parenting experience and not the result of psychological manipulation by a parent. I'll be honest, I have no idea what this means in terms of, I've never known that to be a factor. Yes, of course, some kids prefer one parent, but that doesn't mean that they want to cut the other parent out their life completely. So attachment, how are court assessing attachment? Do they know what attachment looks like? In these circumstances, attachment isn't always the easiest thing to assess anyway, because of the trauma of the court process, the separation, for both parties, for both parents and children. So this immediately fills me with a bit of concern that what they're saying is, when kids reject, it might just be that they don't like the other parent, which, as I posted on LinkedIn yesterday, stinks of a borderline personality disorder approach. That they want the child to like them better, and this kind of gives them that remit of, well, that if they like you better, then they can cut. And it just seems, again, to not have any real understanding of the harm that is done to a child when you rip them away from a parent who they actually might have preferred before, or equally they might not. I mean, they might not have preferred, but that doesn't mean that you don't ever want to see that parent again. So yeah, I mean, lots of concerns around that. Appropriate justified rejection, a situation where a child's rejection of the parent is an understandable response to that parent's behaviour towards the child and or other parent. Again, I struggle with this because from working in child protection, I know that children don't reject their parents. Even when they've been burnt with cigarettes, hit with belts, had things thrown at them, they still love that parent. And actually, the trauma bond here plays a huge role. Is when you've been psychologically abused, you're less likely to reject. So I'm not sure where appropriate justified rejection, if it even exists. And it very much feels like the tone of this document is going to be a complete lack of understanding of how narcissists and borderline personality disorders and the other cluster Bs actually make this happen. So yeah, it's not off to a great start, is it? Alienated behaviours. So they've underlined which have resulted in psychologically and manipulative behaviours, intended or otherwise. Okay, so I'm guessing that means conscious or unconscious, and by a parent towards a child, which have resulted in the child's reluctant resistance or refusal to spend time with the other parent. Okay, I suppose my thing there is I know that alienating behaviours are also patterns of narcissistic parenting, and so just because the child sees both parents doesn't mean that the other parent isn't trying to turn them against them. They just haven't been successful as yet, and maybe they never will be, but that's just like a side note on that. Protective behaviours. Behaviours by a parent towards a child in order to protect the child from exposure to abuse by the other parent or from suffering harm or greater harm as a consequence of the other parent's abuse. Now, I haven't got a problem with protective behaviours, obviously. I think that it's a natural instinct of a parent to protect that child. And what we're talking, and this is the point, in cases like with real genuine alienation cases, then it's not protective, they think it's protective, but it's from a ghost. It's from something that doesn't exist, something from their past that they are projecting into the present. Now, that's not to say that when false allegations of alienation are made, that it's true, that actually it's been protective mechanisms. I think, again, this is a very difficult term because what some parents think is protective is actually harmful, because they don't necessarily understand attachment. They don't necessarily understand the risk. And part of social work, and this is always, it's a frustration for social workers, is I know people think that social workers remove children all the time, but actually we don't, and it can be very frustrating. I remember holding lots of cases, even my cases or client, other colleagues' cases, whereby the children had been subjected to years and years of abuse. They'd been removed for a bit and then they put back. And the reason for that is because they know how harmful it is for children to be removed from their parents, one parent or both parents. It's really harmful and damaging to them. And so that's the risk. That's the balance that you're always trying to strike, is between the harm of keeping them exposed to these behaviours versus the harm of cutting that parent out of their life. And that is last resort within public law. It's a last resort to remove a parent from a child's life. And so ultimately they're saying that, parents know better. And again, I don't want to argue too much on this, because it is a factor, but I don't think it's quite as simple as they're trying to make out here. Again, that black and white thing of someone's done wrong, therefore you should be cut out. Whereas, nurturing a child's resilience and giving them the skills to, repair a relationship, the opportunity for that relationship to be repaired. And that's again, going back to that lack of understanding of attachment. It's not the rupture in the relationship, i.e. a breakdown in a relationship, an argument or some conflict, or, something that's gone wrong in the relationship that is actually the problem. It's the opportunity to repair. And if we're removing the opportunity to repair, that's where the harm comes to the child. So reluctant resistance or refusal, behaviours by a child concerning their relationship with or spending time with a parent, which may have a variety of potential causes. Again, I've kind of covered that children do very rarely refuse. They might, they can be, I don't want to go, but once they're there, they can be fine. Or I guess my point is, it's a huge step to completely allow a child to be removed from a child's life. A parent to be removed from a child's life is incredibly harmful, regardless of what that parent has done. As I said, in public law, there's always the attempt to encourage that relationship, whether that be getting the parent the support and help they need to overcome whatever has created that rupture, or work on the relationship together. Then, and I just want to point out that where there is genuine high risk to a child, then that would be when a child would be removed from that parent. My concern is that the risk within private family law is a lower bar. So particularly in these cases, parent shouts at their kid and they're saying, oh, well, they shouldn't go and see them. And I know it's more complicated than that, but I just think we need, anyway, I'm blabbering, but I'm concerned just from that. So I'm not going to go too much through. Actually, I am, because considerable tension, obviously, because people don't really understand it, and you've got one group who absolutely deny its existence and say it's just a legal abuse tactic of fathers, which again is so narcissistic, and that failure to understand the complexities, that it's very black and white. Using this term pseudoscience, I mean, it doesn't set it up to be. It's clear it's not going to take this seriously, in my opinion. It doesn't understand the realities of this. It doesn't understand that it happens and how harmful it is. If they were to zoom out and look at the makeup of families and this is just in the UK, you can see the impact of alienation in fatherless families, even in the increase of domestic abuse allegations. This all fits, whether they're true or false allegations. By removing fathers from children's lives, we are exposing them to more harm. And that includes from, the parent that is psychologically abusing them, but also from other factors where they haven't got a male role model. So kids aren't learning how to behave. They're not learning how to repair conflict. So, just not taking this seriously is very, very dangerous. This guidance does not aim to explore the research. Again, but that would be really helpful, wouldn't it? If it would actually look at the research surrounding, and again, using the concept of parental alienation. Yeah. So they're saying that parental alienation syndrome has no evidential basis. Well, there is truth in that, because there is no such thing as parental alienation syndrome. I personally follow the work of Dr. Craig Childress, who very helpfully points out where it sits within a psychological framework. And he himself says parental alienation doesn't exist. He uses an attachment based approach, but he calls it obviously child abuse. There's problems within the parent-child relationship, and he breaks it down into that. So whilst I agree that that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist within a psychological construct, and the fact that they haven't talked about that, I think, is dangerous. Misplaced legitimacy, again, very worrying. It sort of sets the tone, doesn't it, that they're not going to take this seriously. So it's saying increasing number of cases where allegations are raised. Well, that might mean that there's an increasing number of cases where this exists. Doesn't seek to add legitimacy. I don't like that. So they're going to change it to reluctance, resistance, and refusal. It just seems to minimise it, but fine. It does acknowledge that it can be emotional and psychological abuse, and that can be far-reaching. It's very, very harmful. So that's good. I like that paragraph. That is the only paragraph that makes any sense so far. And I don't know if I've missed it, but I'm sure at some point it says something about it being rare. So I apologise if I've missed that. But again, from the social media outpouring yesterday from both legal professionals, mainly from some legal professionals, of saying we see it all the time. So that worries me, that the Family Justice Council, where you'd think there'd be input from lawyers and judges as well, you'd think that they'd be able to say, we see this all the time. We see parents who turn their kids against them all the time. Because social media is telling me that that is exactly what parents do. Even the anti-parental alienation lobbyists acknowledge that parents, obviously they say fathers only, turn children against the parent. This is just the gender bias that is playing out. Anyway, so the litigation journey overview. If I was you, I would make yourself, print this off if you think this is your case, and just see where you're at in the journey, see how this might impact your case. It feels very restrictive. It feels very, so I mean, without going through the whole thing, which I am going to go through it, but just in summary, this whole document very much feels like we don't want to acknowledge that this exists. And if it does, we don't necessarily want to do anything about it, because ultimately that would probably involve taking children away from mothers, and we don't want to do that. Again, I want to make it very clear, I know that alienation happens to mothers and fathers. Both, any parent, grandparent, auntie, uncle can be alienated from a child's life. The reason for what I just said was because the anti-PA lobbyists are extreme feminists. They are the ones who basically want fathers erased from the lives of children, and fail to acknowledge that men can be victims of abuse. And majority of people that I work with are balanced. They understand that logically it doesn't make any sense that men can't be equal victims. It doesn't make any logical sense for that, because we're humans. We're equally humans. And people will argue that there's structurally more opportunity, what they call the patriarchy, which is a false use of the term, but makes it structurally, shifts the balance of power towards men. But times have changed. We're not in the late 1800s anymore, where some of these things might well have been true. Even so, women would tend to be the ones that were left with children, and men. I've just been watching Lark Rise to Candlefoot, and one of the fathers just goes and leaves his kid, and it was seen, that was seen quite normal. And women were responsible for the caretaking of children. But we're in very different times now. Women and men work. There are stay-at-home fathers now. We've more understanding on attachment, knowing that it's about the quality of the attachment, not the gender of the person that the child attaches to. So there's, again, a lot of this seems quite outdated in terms of where we're at. Anyway, so this is, so what they're saying is, in order for the court to acknowledge alienating behaviours, they need to see these three. So if you're watching this and you're building your case, this is the most important bit for you. This bit here, which is the child is reluctant, resisting, or refusing to engage in a relationship with you. That reluctant resistance or refusal is not consequence of the actions of the parent, of you, towards the child or the other parent. So you haven't done anything, essentially. And by anything, I mean anything that warrants reluctance, resistance, or refusal. Because when relationships are ending, both parties can say and do things that aren't particularly healthy and can be harmful. But again, that's important for you to know that's the background. It's not caused by any other factors such as the child's alignment, affinity, attachment. I've already said my piece on that. Which how do you prove that? How do you argue that actually the child was very healthily attached to me prior to this, and the child and I, we didn't, there was equal alignment between me and the other parent, and the child loved and had affinity for both of us. Anyway, point 3. The other parent has engaged in behaviours that have directly or indirectly impacted on the child, leading to the child's reluctant resistance or refusal. So those are the 3 points for you. I don't think any of those are particularly easy. I mean, that bit's easy because you're not seeing them and the child's saying they don't want to see them. That's pretty easy to do that bit. These 2 are much harder because they're giving the alienating parent an out by just saying, look, the child just likes me more. We're more securely attached, again, without an assessment of attachment, which a psychologist and a lot of observation would be needed. There's a reason there's specific tools for assessing attachment. And the other parent is engaged. Now, again, there are things you can do, and in Master Your Evidence, which is part of the Court Prep Toolkit, we look at those patterns and the ABC approach to looking at alienating behaviour. So what happened before contact was stopped? How, so we can map their behaviour to this reluctance and refusal and resistance. Range in intensity. Either or both parents could engage in psychological manipulation, which may or may not. Okay. Research evidence suggests alienating. Oh, there we go. Are relatively rare. Right. That's from Benheim, Jennifer Harmon, which are actually, they are really, I would be interested to know if that's been taken out of context. I will have a chat with Ben about that. Therefore, despite an increasing number of allegations being made. Oh, okay. So maybe it's findings. Okay, I'm gonna need to speak to Ben about that. But so yeah, findings are rare. That doesn't mean it's not happening. And again, what does rare mean? Yeah, I've got questions about that. They're saying that reluctance, refusal, and resistance cannot in itself amount to evidence. So basically, point 1 is not enough. So they're saying it's Darvo, a counter allegation. Post-separate litigation type 2. We know where that's come from. But look, so it's not. Well, this is allegation of domestic abuse. Okay, so my concern here is domestic abuse has been converted to this. Oh, it's only women that experience domestic abuse, when actually the reality is more like 50-50. Male and female experience domestic abuse. And so when we say allegation of domestic abuse, that automatically, subconsciously makes you think that it's women who are victims. So women are victims, therefore, and men aren't. So therefore, as soon as DA, coupled with the Kafka's guidance, as soon as DA is brought up, then, which will be 9 times out of 10 brought up by a woman, then that's what we need to look at first. We need to protect this domestic abuse narrative. Again, I don't want to belittle anyone who is alienating behaviours. If you're following me and you're watching my stuff. You're dealing with someone who has narcissistic personality, some of those traits, and that might cover, any of the cluster Bs. But they will be using the behaviours that are alienating. They will be trying to turn the child against you. They will be undermining you. They will be belittling you. They will be making unilateral decisions. They will be counter-parenting, because that's the type of person. And in family court, the number of parents that exhibit those personality traits is much higher than in the general population, because relationships break down and aren't easy to resolve through mediation. So actually, although they say it's rare, it's more likely to be higher. It's more likely to be a higher percentage in family courts because of the nature of both the relationship and the personality. So, so for people that have been domestically abused, whether they're male or female, and narcissistically abused, again, the gender bit is irrelevant, because a narcissist can be a man or a woman. Borderline personality affects men and women. Cluster B's personality disorders affect men and women. And so we need to remove this gender element, which is very strong throughout this. So they're saying here that the weight should not be considered equal, which just makes me quite angry. But also, I suppose it's about, you're going to have to change how you present your case. You're going to have to present it as domestic abuse rather than alienation. Listing the same behaviours but calling it domestic abuse and emotional abuse of the child. So I've got a very croaky voice. I'm just drinking my hot honey and lemon. Given the relative impact of domestic abuse and harm that flows from it, the importance of protecting children, alienating behaviours will not be found in cases where findings of domestic abuse are made. Well, there you go. There you go. If you want to remove the other parent from your life, not that this is new information, but just say you're a victim of domestic abuse, and boom, you're out. The other parent's out, because they're not going to find alienating behaviours because you've said that they abused you. Okay. So the court should no. The court should remain mindful that a child might withdraw from a relationship with a parent for a variety of reasons. No, this is rare. I say, worked in child protection. Very rare. Children love their parents. We are all hardwired to love and connect to our parents. We're not hardwired to only connect based on the quality of our parents. We're hardwired to connect to them. Full stop. Anyway, children can and do come to their own conclusions. Older children. So, again, if you look at adult children who might cut parents out of their life, that's rare as well. Adults very rarely cut. People in abusive relationships struggle to walk away. This is something that really annoys me, is we're saying that children are cleverer. And again, I'm not meaning to demean children in this. They are very clever. But they are cleverer and have more strength emotionally to cut off a relationship with an abusive partner or abusive parent, than an adult. There is research that shows it takes an adult at least, or on average, 7 attempts to leave an abusive partner, because they understand all the connotations of that. They're emotionally tied, they're trauma bonded to this person. They want the relationship to work on some level. There's fear, all of those factors. But yet a child doesn't have any of that. A child doesn't feel any of those things. A child goes, no, I don't want them in my life anymore. I mean, I don't get it. It defies logic, in my opinion. The child responds to a justified rejection because of harmful parenting. Okay. Again, harmful parenting. In the later things, they're saying good enough parenting. So again, I think is there a level playing field here? Is a father's parenting as good? Are we judging that on the standard of good enough? Again, then this works both ways. I know lots of mothers who are judged really harshly and not with that good enough. So again, I just think we're shifting the playing field to fit a narrative. Their actions may arise from alignment or affinity with one parent. No. Just prefer spending time. That is not reason to cut a parent out of your life. Differing parenting styles. You don't reject a parent because they've got different parenting styles. No, again, you're not assessing attachment properly, so I don't like them using that. Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I'm struggling. I really don't like that. Protective behaviours to shield a child, such as limiting contact or moving away from the area. Oh God, okay. I'm drifting into that feeling of despondency and despair, which I don't like. Look, there are parents out there who are protective. I don't doubt it at all. There are parents out there who are abusive. I know that. I've worked with that. I'm not denying that. I just feel that this is an excuse. In cases where it is genuine alienation, and by that I mean it is a psychological process of role reversal, of an inverted hierarchy, of attachment system suppression, then this bit is an excuse. They're saying that they're just giving them a free pass to cut parents out. So early robust case management, great. I've had lots of cases where we've tried to get this moved up to a judge, but retained by magistrates, which in itself is great if they're training magistrates, but they're never going to be trained to the same level or have the same level of experience. They have a place for sure. So they're saying where the three elements of there is reluctance, resistance. It's not because of anything that the alienated parent has done, or attachment, alignment, or affinity, and it is because of actions by the alienating parent. If there's one or more of the three elements, one or more absent. So if you haven't proven to the magistrate that the other two aren't present, then it'll stay with the magistrate. That's, again, I'm not keen on that. Timing of allegations. Again, that's hard because when do you bring it up? And again, I am trying to balance this out with the fact that I do know that false allegations are made sometimes. But I also know that alienation does happen in these cases where you have got a personality disorder parent. This is all process stuff, so I get you to read that. Okay. So they're talking about facts. The Kafkas are not arbiters of fact. So they've got to be mindful that children form negative views about a parent without influence or manipulation. I'd want more questions. Kafkas have a series of practitioner tools. probably need to have a look at, because I can't remember that. I know we've got the child impact assessment framework. I don't know how they're assessing attachment, affinity, and affiliation, or alignment, sorry. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna. God, to be honest, I'm starting to feel quite down, and so I'm not. I'm wary of continuing. I want to kind of summarise my feelings. Do go through it yourself. I feel sad because, as I said, the tone for this whole document, which is kind of set here and here, is a lack of real understanding, heavily influenced and impacted by the anti-alienation crew. They've included this Reem Al-Salman, which was based on utter, they haven't actually included, they've included Ben Hind's work, which again, I'm going to have a chat with him about that, just to see how he feels, whether he feels he's been misquoted or what his take on this is. But it feels very heavily one-sided. A lot of women's names in here. Again, I don't want to. I want to be as balanced as possible with this, but it's hard not to feel very sad for the fathers whose avenues for having a relationship with their child, is being diminished. And that's the other reason I'm going to call this video to an end, is because my voice is starting to go, and so I'm not going to be able to actually talk. I'm so sorry. So yeah, have a read through the document yourself. I'd love to know your thoughts. Like I say, I do want to be balanced, and I don't want to diminish the truth that false allegations do get made. I've worked with plenty of parents where false allegations have been made, and the one thing that stands out, which is the same from this, is that no one really understands it properly. And if they did, it'd be much easier to see. And I don't feel that this document helps that. I don't feel that this document helps anyone to understand what alienation, alienated behaviours, and the personality disorder parenting underneath it really is. And so this just feels like a strangle on fathers. And again, if you're a mother who's experiencing that, I include you in that. I do include you. I think alienated parents, mothers and fathers, this is not particularly helpful for you. That's not to say it's, done and dusted, but at this moment in time, I thought I was feeling better about it. As I've gone through it, I've started to feel a little bit more despondent again. So I am going to call it a day. Again, my voice is part of it. I don't want to keep coughing all the way through this, make my voice even worse. Do share your thoughts in the comments below. My intention is not to offend or to diminish anyone's experience. If you've experienced false allegations, I get it. I know how harmful it is, and I know how frustrating it is. If you're experiencing alienation, you have my utmost sympathy. I suppose my biggest takeaway from all of this is it just clarifies the fact that family court is not the place for these cases. Full stop. These are these are for a different arena. This is about mental health. This is about psychological well-being, and family court is not the place for these to happen. So that's the positive I'm going to take away. Actually, I'm going to shift my energy from that, and just say this has given me more clarity that this is not the right system for this to be happening. Within family court doesn't have a clue about the complexities of these cases, And whilst some people might watch this and think, great, those false allegations, they're going to be dealt with, a lot of people watching this are going to be thinking, oh God, what am I going to do? How do I overcome this now? And for you genuinely have my utmost sympathy. And yeah, so take care, everyone. Bye.